Lionel, is that you?
There, I think I got it. David?
Lionel?
David?
Lionel?
Do you know why you're here?
Tell me.
If you're here, this must be an introduction.
So you're not doing it alone?
So that I'm not doing it alone. It actually sounds better already, even in the first 20 seconds.
Proof of concept.
What was that?
Proof of my concept.
Yeah, exactly. So we're going to introduce, let me just look up on the big board. How's life treating you right now, David?
Couldn't be better. If I was any better, I'd have to be twins.
I feel like you're making, I don't fit. Oh, this is All-Star Variety Hour number 25.
Awesome.
And I don't have an intro for it. And I have 3 segments. And the last segment, we actually do, the guest and I do the outro. So we don't need that, but we definitely needed the intro. So I thought, well, I'll just get David. You're the official introduction. You realize now you've become the official introduction guy because I can't do it without you.
Okay.
It's not a show without you. I wonder if the boy wonders anywhere here.
Yeah, I'm around.
Oh, there you go. He's sleeping in the corner in the studio.
Yeah. I'm hunched over in the chair.
If we just had Ron Marsh of Ron's Trains and Things, then we'd really have a
party.
That would make a show, wldn't it?
That would make a show.
There
That'd
you
make
go.
an intro.
Are you still available, Ron, on Thursday to do your update on all your things?
Sure. You just have to remind me what time, if we set a time, or tell me what time.
Yeah. Why don't I just tell you what time? That way I get to order you around. That way I get to...
That's the story of my life.
Yeah, that way I get to make demands.
Get in line.
Yeah. So anyways, you guys, thanks for joining, coming in with David, because David has made it very clear, and I completely agree with him, that the introductions to this podcast, when I do them by myself, are really hard to listen to. They're like a long day, aren't they, David?
Yes.
It's 5 minutes. It turns into a long day. So this particular show is All-Star Variety Hour number 25, and it's got 3 separate segments. The first segment is our very own flight attendant, Tracy Boyd. I finally got her some, she all along, she's been holding out on me. She had wired earbuds to plug into her iPhone. And I think the new iPhones make better sound, because I interviewed just recently a fellow named David Hyde. Hang on a minute. Where does he fit into this whole thing? Don't tell me. Let me guess. I'm going to look through. We have heard David Hyde. Yes, we've heard David. And then that was last week, actually, we heard David. So I interviewed him, and he's the fellow that was from Texas that's plays in the Dallas Symphony Orchestra, which was a long stretch for, imagine how I tried to do talking to him. Can you imagine that, David, me and talking to a guy from the Dallas Symphony Orchestra?
That one is a stretch.
Deron, what do you think?
Well, I don't know about you, but I as a fan of the symphony, I really think it is open to anyone. It is the everyman's entry into a more cultured life.
Wow.
That sounded pretty good, didn't it?
Yeah. I like that. He invited us to come too. We're gonna take up the first 2 rows one night. So anyways, I interviewed him, and he's a really cool guy. It was a lot of fun, as we've all heard. And he had earbuds and with the inline microphone. And up until recently, those haven't worked very well, but his seemed to work really well. As we all know, the audio was really good. So then I wanted to talk to Tracy Boyd, because she had this really good idea. And she had her wireless earbuds, which are okay to listen to if you're just talking to her on the phone. But if you're trying to do a recording, they're not so good. And I said, you know what? I got to get you a set of these, or you got to get them. And she happened to have them with her. She carries everything that she can possibly carry in her flight attendant suitcase. So she had them, and then we had good audio, which was great. So the first thing we do is we talk to her, and one of the things we talk to her about is she wants to make flashcards so that she can learn how to identify locomotives, and which I thought was a really cool idea. So we talked to her for like 25 minutes about other things, but primarily this thing about how that she wants to learn how to identify locomotives easily. And by the way, I think our friend Kaylee Zhang is actually working on a clinic about that, so that would be perfect. So we talked to her, and then we talked to this lovely young lady all the way from West Hartford, Connecticut, Kaylee Zhang. She's the nutmeg girl, and she's the photo
Pratt and Whitney expert.
Pratt and Whitney, yeah, she's the photo.
She's the ultimate volunteer.
She's the ultimate volunteer. And I just wanted to talk to her for like 10 minutes, but talk. I couldn't get her to stop. And she was, we talked to her because she was installing a decoder in Trackmobile. That was a model that came out from, I think, BLM. Is that what it is? Somebody
BLI.
BL what?
I'm pretty sure it's BLI, isn't it?
BLI? Somebody shake their head so that I know what's going on. Not you, Ron, because then it'll make too much noise. And anyways, I interviewed her about installing a decoder in a Trackmobile, and that was really cool. And that was for like 25 minutes. And then finally, we talked to Tony Cook, the editor of Model Railroad News, and he did a couple of product news announcements. One about the Athearn Genesis locomotive, and then another one for Rapido. And then with Tony and I, anytime we have any discussion, there's a lot of periphery. We talked about the Dukes of Hazzard and the two guys, the two cousins that filled in for them. Anyways, it's pretty interesting. I love talking to Tony. He's just like the best. He's like
Fountain of knowledge. Yeah,
he's a fountain of knowledge. He has an incredible radio voice. He's just got it all. He is the perfect package. So anyways, that's what we did. We talked to Tracy Boyd, the official flight attendant of the AML Network, about flashcards primarily. We talked to Kaylee Zhang. Hopefully I was only going to talk to her for like 10 minutes, but she just went on and on and on and on about her Trackmobile. And then we talked to Tony Cook from Model Railroad News, and he did a couple of product news things, and that was it. And it was pretty good. And we've now chewed up 8 minutes, so that we're going to stop now. What do you think, Ron? Did that all make sense to you, or should we do it again?
No, clear as mud.
And even in this segment, we learned about why everybody should go to the symphony orchestra.
Absolutely.
How many symphonies have you been to there, Boy Wonder?
Quite honestly, I think I've been to 4 or 5.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Mostly when I was younger, but I got really lucky, and then I had some teachers who were huge into music, and they took us to the National Arts Center here in our nation's capital, and we got to see some wonderful performances.
Yeah, the nation's capital of Canada. We're talking to Boy Wonder, George, the Boy Wonder Taylor, Ron from Ron's Trains and Things. What's new on Ron's Trains and Things, real quick, Ron?
Well, we've got kind of a layout expansion thing happening here at my layout. So,
I'm sorry,
we're talking a lot about that.
I'm sorry, we're out of time.
Tune in next time for the things.
Right. I know what I was going to ask you. I joined on YouTube. You have like the extra stuff where you can join.
Mm-hmm.
Did I not sign up properly? Like, has there been anything recently on that part?
There was a behind the scenes video came out just last week. The problem is you never actually log in, and you have to actually log into YouTube in order to get those notifications. And we don't have this telekinetic thing that can just reach out and notify your brain remotely that's there and available for you.
Well, they have no way to access the thoughts of straying.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So let me tell you, if you ever interview Kaylee Zhang, the official flight, or no. the official turbine engine builder of the AML network, make sure you allow extra time, because she just goes on and on and on. And then finally, David, you're all set. We're all done now. How's that? 10 minutes.
It was perfect.
This sounds like crap to me. I wonder what it's going to sound like. Okay,
It's
Dave.
fine.
Better than when you with you by yourself.
Yeah, it's got to be better than me by myself. Yeah, that is painful. I have to admit, David, you're completely right. Okay, David, take us away, please, and thank you.
Subway chime, go.
So I'm gonna record. We're gonna record something right now, just so you can hear it, and
Okay.
then I'll put it on. And then you can actually hear it playing through. Oh, this is spectacular! This is spectacular! I am so excited. I'm talking to Tracy, the official flight attendant of the AML Network, and we got her audio working really well. And I'm excited because you're the second person. I think the new iPhones work even better with this. So you've got I don't know what you call them. They're earbuds. They're the iPhone earbuds with the inline microphone just plugged into your phone, and you're sitting in a hotel in Kansas City.
Very still. I'm sitting very still.
Yes, well, that's important because with those inline microphones, if you move around, then they make a scratching noise. But this is was at some point, I don't know when this is on, but at some point we interviewed David Hyde from Dallas, Fort Worth area, and he was a member. He is a member of the Dallas Symphony Orchestra. Sorry, David, and he's the lead horn, and he used these. And I said to Tracy, I said, man, we got to try this, because if we can get this working for you, we are off to the races. Because today we came up with a great idea that we don't know what it is yet, but it sounds like a great idea. It does. Because it's the idea. What is the idea we have is to help people
Identify locomotives.
Yeah, identify locomotives, because you struggle with that. And lots of people do. I do. I struggle with any third generation locomotive.
Well, I don't even know what a third generation locomotive is. I don't know what y'all are talking about. I don't know how you know that. And then when I look at trains and I study and I'm like, I don't see that number. I don't see what they're talking about. And you did a video. I don't know. You did something on YouTube with Tony Cook last year,
right?
Or a couple months ago. Anyway, and you flashed up a picture and then Tony talked about it.
Yes.
It was phenomenal because he would give you like features to look at so that you could identify things. And, Tony's voice is the best anyway.
Yeah.
So listening to him, and it was very helpful. So then somebody posted on the fans page today about a cyclopedia that has different, and so I was asking about that, and I just thought maybe if I make flashcards with pictures with features about what makes the engine stand out, like how do you identify it? Because like when you're looking at cars, like, okay, you can find out features of a Chevy and you can kind of identify them.
Yeah.
Plus their names on the back of them if you're behind them. That's always helpful. But the engines, I just don't get it. And looking at them, they have different numbers, and somebody go, oh, that's a blah, 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 SD40, GP, blah. And it's like, where are those letters? Where are those numbers? I don't see them anywhere on there. How do they know that?
Yes, I agree with you wholeheartedly, because whenever I talk to Kaylee and I show a picture when we're doing prototype posse or something like that, I'll go, that's a GP 38-2, right? And she says, no, it's a Jeep 40. And
I so don't feel bad anymore.
And then I'm like, and really I'm just, the one thing you can tell the difference. So first generation diesels, I can identify some first generation diesels. I can identify a Jeep 7, an RS1, an RS3, and that's probably, and then F units, but there's all sorts of different F units. And then when you get to the second generation, I can identify that locomotives are in fact of the second generation. I just can't tell you what they are. I can give you a ballpark guess. It's somewhere between a Jeep 35 and a Jeep 40 or 40, and then when you get to third generation diesels, they're the ones where we see them, like the ones we saw at the barbecue last year. I couldn't tell the difference from one to another. They all look the same to me.
Me too. So I don't feel so badly. I can tell the difference between a steam and a diesel.
So then we were talking, and you used to be a teacher before you were a flight attendant. You were a teacher. What grades did you teach?
Kindergarten and third grade.
You're going to love the sound
and middle school.
You're going to love the sound of this audio. Sounds spectacular. I am so excited. I never would have believed that when from model railroading I would get excited about audio, but I get excited about audio because it's become my life's quest to have everybody Wait till you hear this. You're going to be like thrilled with the way this sounds.
I doubt it.
Yes, you are. I'm
I
telling
don't
you.
like the sound of my voice.
Well, I don't like the sound of mine, but it hasn't stopped me. So we're trying to come up with an idea here, which I think is a great idea because not everybody is an expert. And the problem is most people won't admit to not knowing something. And in the AML nation, we're slowly getting to that point where people feel more and more comfortable. They don't have to know everything. So what we're coming up with is the seeds of an idea for where you're gonna help people. You're gonna learn all about the locomotives, and you can help people at the same time learn themselves.
That's the plan. Well, I mean, if somebody else learns, that's fine. But I'm just assuming I'm the only one that doesn't know.
I would. I'll tell you, if you can teach me the difference between a Jeep 38 and a Jeep 40, I'd think about buying you a car.
Ooh. Can it be towable? Like I need something that'll tow my camper.
Then you're wanting a truck.
Well, it could be an SUV, right? That's a car.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, it have to be, but not
a vehicle. How about let's go with vehicle?
Not a Dodge though.
That's fine.
I'm not a Dodge guy.
I'm not picky. When it's free, I'm not picky.
Yeah, but you got a long road ahead of you. Okay, so what are you doing in Kansas City? You're on the last leg of a 3-day leg.
I'm on the first day. Today's day 1.
Where'd you go today? You started out in Baltimore.
I went to Kansas City. Then I went to St. Louis. Now I'm back in Kansas City.
And then where are you going tomorrow?
I end up in Portland, Maine tomorrow night.
Oh, Jesus.
I think I go through Baltimore, Charlotte, back to Baltimore, then up to Portland, Maine, maybe?
Okay. So, and what's it like on the planes? Because when we did Let's Hug It Out, you wouldn't let me play your interview, and you are going to love the way this sounds. Your family is going to, I'm telling you, you are going to love the way this audio sounds. I am excited. How many people were on the plane today?
I'm going to say average 40 people each leg.
So a lot more than what was on before. So let's get down to something serious here. We got to talk about your layout in your train room. What do you call that at the farm? You live on a farm in Ohio. That's where your mom and your stepdad are, and your son Ben is there, and Allie, fiance. Allie is fiance, and then you go back. You sometimes live in Baltimore, and you sometimes live at the farm, which is your homestead. It's where you live.
It's where my mail goes.
It's where your mail goes. And what do you call the room where you keep? What do you call that building where you keep your layout?
The train house.
How big is it?
12 by 20.
So that's plenty big enough because shouldn't we decide exactly what scale you're going to decide on? Because you've had N scale, you've had some HO, you buy, and then don't call it toy trains. We need to come up with a different name for that type of. I don't like the name toy trains. It's three rail. It's 3-rail is really what it's called.
Okay, we'll go with 3-rail. It is.
Yeah. And you like that, though. You like those types of trains, though, don't you?
I do. That is a definite decision I have made.
And you're thinking, and you've made you've had a layout for a while, and this all started. Let's recap here for everybody, including me. This all started because I remember when I was doing the podcast. It's got to be going back 3 years ago now. I was doing the podcast, and you started posting, and this all started because your brother, you were going to get the trains down for your nephew, right?
Correct. Yes. I was going to give them to my nephew for a Christmas gift.
And how old was he at the time?
He was just born. My brother and his wife adopted a baby.
Okay.
So for the first Christmas, I was like, ooh, I can get the trains out and give them to Maheen for Christmas. I was all excited. And I got them out, and I was just going to put them in a little circle to see if they run. I was going to run them down to Pat's Trains down in Wheeling, West Virginia, give them a look over, make sure they were safe, and then put them in a nice, fresh cardboard box without wrapping, because my brother is a very green person, and hand them over to my brother. And my mom suggested, well, why don't you get a sheet of plywood and put it in the top of the barn, and let's set some buildings up on top. And I was like, oh, okay. So 7 sheets of plywood later, and that was in July, I decided to do that. And I had an entire layout built before Christmas.
So it was your mom that said put some buildings on it?
Yeah, it was her idea. And we used to, as kids, my dad would put up a train under the Christmas tree.
Yeah.
And so we still had one or two of those buildings, but I still had his trains. And so that was what I did. I used his trains. And then I started looking around and like looking for train shops on my overnights. And when I was in Baltimore and found some secondhand stuff and train shows and swap meets and that kind of stuff, and just gathered up some stuff and built a village.
All right. So let me ask you an absolutely honest question. See if you can give me as honest answer as possible. I have two questions, but I'll ask this one first. So let me see. How can I ask this question? Because this is a great question if I figure out how to ask it. So let me see if I can figure out how to ask this question. You weren't your dad used to set up trains. You wouldn't call yourself a model railroad enthusiast before you set up these trains that you were going to give to your nephew, would you?
No, I did play with trains when I was in high school with my boyfriend.
Really?
Yeah, because he had trains, and I got my dad's trains out because I always thought they were fun to play with, so I could get him to play with them with me.
What was his name?
Brian.
Okay.
Brian Newburn. Yeah, I ended up marrying him for a minute.
You married him for a minute?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's another story. We'll go down that. That's a different. So, okay. So you met would you say he was some sort of a model railroader?
Not at all.
Okay.
No.
He just, okay.
So I just thought it would be fun. It would be cool. So
all right.
Let's do that.
All right. So now, my question is, we first met at Springfield a couple of years ago, and you seem to be somehow you got involved in the trains. It's been a couple of years, 2 or 3 years. And I know you've been frustrated some of the time trying to learn it because you like to learn stuff. And you also seem like somebody who would like to have all the answers right away. But would you say that would you say that you enjoy the hobby, the people, the trains? Like, what do you think it is that's attracting you to the whole? Is it the podcast? Like, what do you feel like is the thing that's making you stay with it?
Stay with it, or people make me stay with it.
Yeah, it's the people the most. Then
it is now. Yes.
Okay, and you met a lot of people through the podcast.
I have,
which is cool. That's the coolest.
It is. I just wish I could actually visit more people.
Well, as soon as this COVID thing is over, you'll be able to visit all kinds of people.
I hope so.
So are you enjoying do you feel like you're, like there's, Kaylee enjoys it. Michelle Kempema enjoys it. I know lots of other ladies that are involved in the hobby. Do you feel like it's something you enjoy if you knew more about it? Like, where are we at here? Like, is your enthusiasm?
Well, that's kind of a funny question because I think the more I learn about it and the more I realize I don't know, the more intimidated I become. And then I kind of get frustrated and go, I can't do this anymore because I don't feel like I know. Like when I started, I had no idea about the prototype modeling and the people that do years of research. The only thing that kept sticking out in my mind is every time I would visit a layout or meet somebody or look at something, and Kevin always goes, see, it took them years to do it. And I built like that whole thing and wanted to know everything in a couple of months.
Yeah, which is probably just part of your personality.
Yes. So the more I learn, the more intimidated I become. And then it's kind of like, then I don't want to share with people.
What can we do to make the hobby more fun for you? That's a good question. That's a great question. Holy smoly. You're somebody that really doesn't want to give it up. You enjoy the people. You enjoy the adventure and all the people you've met. So what is it we can do to make it more enjoyable for you?
Buy me a bigger building so I could put a bigger layout in.
Well, aside from that, I don't know
that there's anything. I thoroughly enjoy it. I enjoy listening to the podcast. And then when I'll listen to, somebody's interview or something's going on and it's like, that gives me an idea. And then it's like, then I want to go home and work on something, which is why I built the N scale layout in my crash pad so that I could at least play with something.
Right.
And I found that I can't do N scale. They're so cool to watch and to run, but I was going to do this whole Domino Sugar thing about Baltimore because I'm in Baltimore, and it's like to deal with buildings and structures on N scale. Forget it. I'm too clumsy. I'll just stick with just the greenery.
It sounds like we just need to get you some focus.
Oh, good luck with that.
Have you ever heard of a guy named Spoon? He has trouble focusing too.
I'm about on his level.
Okay. I just think that the 3-rail, we're going to call it 3-rail. I interviewed a guy. Last night I was interviewing Scott Thornton from Proto Throttle, IO Scaled Engineering, but apparently they're in Colorado, so I'm still not grasping that whole scenario. And Ron Marsh was helping me interview him because we were talking about some his water effect that he has built on his layout. I'm going to put this segment with another segment I got from Kaylee. And then, so anyways, Ron and I were talking to Scott Thornton about this river that he built on his layout. And he models in HO scale, he models the Iowa scale, the Iowa Interstate Railroad. And, but anyways, he started talking about this guy, this company called Mini Prints. And this is a guy that was on the NMRAX, and he's actually in Toronto, Ontario. And he builds he 3D prints all sorts of like critters and stuff and things that you can put on your layout. And he has tons of O-scale stuff. And when I saw that, I think I actually said to those guys, holy mackerel, when Tracy sees this, she's going to go nuts. It's perfect for your layout. He has moose and beavers and all kinds of stuff.
Mini prints?
Mini prints, miniprints.ca. I'm going to look for it right now as we're talking because I want to make sure I get it right. And I'm pretty sure it was miniprints.ca, miniprints.ca. There it is. Boom. Let's see. There it comes. Okay. So if you go to land and you scroll down and he has beavers, boom, beavers. And he makes beavers in HO scale, S scale, and O scale. You would love this stuff. You would absolutely go nuts for this stuff.
I'm going to have to check it out when we hang up.
I know, yeah, exactly. And, we're not hanging up. We'll leave the studio.
It's not my bedtime.
Yeah, no, I mean, we'll leave the studio. You don't hang up.
Right. When I leave.
Yeah.
When I get back.
Yeah, exactly. When we leave the studio, when we turn the lights off on the studio. So this is stuff. I think you need to concentrate on the fact that you like your 3-rail. You you've done a really good job on that so far. For somebody that's just starting out, you've done a great job. And now I really love this idea of figuring out how we can teach you what locomotives are and teach a whole bunch of other people at the same time. Because I want to give a hats off to Jeff Schultz, who on our last virtual chat, the night that Seth Gartner gave us a lovely tour of his Piney Fork branch, and which was not far from where your homestead is. Jeff Schultz said, could he he actually asked Spoon, he says, is there any way you could walk around the locomotive and show me what a bunch of things is? Because Jeff, admitted that he didn't know what a whole bunch of stuff on a locomotive is.
Kudos to Jeff. Thank you.
I know, exactly. There are tons and tons of people in this hobby, and I'm one of them. I know a few locomotives, and I love the hobby, but actual names of equipment, I just love the hobby. And now I love the people of the hobby more than I love the hobby, probably. So we got to figure out how to do this. We got to figure out how to do this. All right. So what are you thinking? You're going to make flashcards, you said?
Yeah. So I'm thinking I'm just going to make a little post on maybe the fans page and ask people to send me a picture, or even if they just give me the name of their favorite engine and why not even necessarily why they like it, but tell me something that's going to make it stand out so I can identify it. And then I'll print them out and make it flashcards and then kind of study them, like how you learn something.
All right.
That's my plan. And then we can laminate them and pass them on.
Yes.
Because I have a grandson that really, really likes trains, but I feel kind of like an idiot because I know that train, but when he starts articulating things and asking me questions, if he's still into trains, how am I going to answer him? I got to be able to tell him what's what.
Yeah. Could you talk faster?
Sorry.
That was very cool. When you get excited, that was very cool. You're like George the Boy Wonder. So yeah, I love this idea. I don't know how it's going to play out, but I love this idea. I think we're onto something here.
We'll give it a try, right?
Absolutely. Okay. So my favorite locomotive is the Alco RS1. So and the way you can tell it's an RS1, it has a very distinctive look. It came before the RS3, which I think is an ugly locomotive. The RS3 is much more rounded, and I guess for the 50s, it was making it look deco or sophisticated or something. But the RS1 has a lot of character. It has windowsills over the cab and stuff like that. So go find yourself an RS1 and make that flashcard, and we'll go from there.
Okay.
Because I would love to know more about the RS1. That's a great place to start. So what do you want people to do? You want people to what? Post where?
On the fans page.
On the fans. Okay.
Or send them to me.
Or send
Messenger.
All right. Tracy Boyd. So you can message her because she's on the fans page.
Yeah.
And they're going to message you what? A picture of their favorite locomotive?
Yes. And how am I going to know that's that locomotive? Like, how do you identify it?
Okay. So that's a good, I got to figure out how I'm going to try that. I'm going to try that. All right. I got to put this out really soon. So what's today? Today is,
not a clue.
Yeah, today's
day one for me.
Yeah.
Day one of 6.
Yeah. Really?
Well, I'm hoping to do 6 if I can get an overtime trip after this.
Isn't that like a lot of work?
Well, yeah, but it's also a lot of money.
Oh, okay.
So there's a payoff at the end.
All right. And are a lot of flight attendants staying home?
They are. Our good news, we just had great news from our company. We will have no layoffs this year and no pay concessions.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, we are going to weather this.
Well, Southwest is a really good, really well-run company, isn't it?
It is. It's a great company.
Yeah. And you're our official flight attendant. Yeah. Now, when you hear this, okay, how long have we been talking? I'm going to stop here in a minute because I don't want to. We've been talking 25 minutes, and I'm telling you, this is the kind of stuff that people enjoy. You bring enthusiasm to the hobby, and people like to hear that. They like listening to Kaylee, and they like to listen to enthusiastic people. So don't be intimidated by what you don't know. Be positive about what you do know and be positive about your energy.
I can do that.
Yeah.
And I'm not embarrassed about it. I just, here's what I found. With anything new, when you're learning, sometimes you don't know the verbiage, so you don't exactly know how to articulate the questions that you have.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
So that's where I find I get into a little pickle when I'm trying to describe something I want something to do or something I'm looking for, and I can't exactly tell you what it is.
I'll tell you, man, if we could figure out how to do this and make it work, I mean, this is something for Michelle Kempema. She has all kinds of kids that come in.
I know. That makes me miss my teaching days listening to her.
Yeah. And why did you give that up?
Life.
Yeah.
Life throws curveballs at you, and you got to be able to dodge them.
You know what I always say? You keep throwing pitches at my head. Eventually, I'm going to start throwing them back. Okay, I'm going to stop now because I am very excited because I have wanted to get you on the podcast for a long time, and we had you on once, and the sound was okay. But this sound, when you hear this, it's going to blow your socks off. You are going to be thrilled with this, and I don't care what you think about your personality because then the podcast wouldn't exist at all because I have a very peculiar personality according to a lot of people. Not peculiar. I am not peculiar. Everybody else, a lot of people think that. I have a very, I don't know what my personality is. I like it because it's me. So anyways, you're going to hear this. It's going to be positive. It's like Kaylee being on here or lots of other people. Lots and lots of people say to me, "Oh, I got nothing to say. Are you sure I want to be on? Are you sure I got anything to say?" And I always say, well, let me look after that. And we've asked a ton of questions and we chewed up 30 minutes. What is your favorite locomotive on your 3-rail?
It would be my dad's, but it's not even on there right now. Actually, that's a lie. I have the B&O on there right now. I couldn't even tell you what it is, but it goes, next stop, Pittsburgh. So it's fun. And the kids love it. And it's fun.
Yeah, this is going to be great for your grandson. And I hear you have another grandson on the way.
I do. He's due in August, mid-August.
What's the first grandson's name?
River.
And the second one's going to be stream?
No. I don't know if I'm allowed to say.
Oh, okay. You're not allowed to say. It's probably Babbling Brook.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Or something completely different.
Or it would be cool if
something like Ozzie Dean or something like that, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah,
it might be.
Or if his name was going to be Running and then the first grandson was River, they could introduce him. This is my youngest son, Running, and this is his brother, River. All right, so we're gonna work on this, and what are you gonna do with your layout now? Because you had yourself all worked up into a lather about what you were gonna do with it, and I made the suggestion on virtual chat that you should have people help you design it because you want to tear some of it down.
I do. I'm going to take I have started taking the parts out that I don't like or that I can change, improve on. I really, really, really like doing the scenery and making little scenes. However, the teacher mode in me comes out and there's things I need to learn. So I feel like I can't reward myself doing the scenery until I learn more about the wiring or the electronics or the engines and what should I be running that goes with the scenery.
Yeah. And would you, if you were picking a particular, are you trying to model a particular area?
No.
You're just trying to have fun.
I think I'm just trying to have fun. I tried. Yeah. I'm all over the place. Do we call that spoonism? I've got a little spoonism going on. I am all over the place because I haven't found anything that I don't like the West.
Right.
I don't like the West. I find not to offend anybody, but I find it kind of eh.
Right.
So yeah, I don't, there's a lot of things I do like. And when I made a list of everything I wanted to try to put in my new layout in my house, this little house, yeah, it didn't work. Like I wanted the baseball field and I wanted a lake and I wanted the farm and I wanted a city and I wanted a neighborhood. Like you just can't have it all. I wanted a circus with a teeny tiny train going around the circus.
Right. There's a lot of people in that part of the hobby. It's like the Lego train guys. I consider them to be as much a part of model railroading as anybody. Hey, Matt Dawson, how you doing? K.L. Leifert, how you doing, buddy? I consider them to be as much a part of the hobby as anybody. And it's the same thing. Like everybody's part of the hobby because it creates such a community. So we need to make sure that you enjoy the fact it's part of the challenge. It's no different than for me doing this podcast. It's just another part of the hobby. It's another aspect. So I'm going to stop talking because I'm kind of excited. I have no idea how this idea is going to work. Man, I wish I could say that word properly. I have no idea how this idea is going to work, but I really like the sound of it. We're going to teach you locomotives, and we're going to teach everybody else because I couldn't identify a third generation diesel if my life depended on it.
Well, I don't feel so bad at all.
Yeah. Can you say subway chime go?
Subway chimes go.
You got to say it with enthusiasm.
That's enthusiasm.
It wasn't the same kind of Tracy enthusiasm as we hear sometimes. Like just a little bit more.
Okay. Subway chimes go.
So, Kaylee, I just hit the button. I have.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun. I've hit the button. I'm going to turn my camera off because I can't do this when I'm. So, we were just talking to John Sacradotti. I have no idea what this will be a segment probably on the All-Star Variety Hour. But
yeah, we haven't seen those in a while, but so it must be nice to get back to doing that again.
I know. And everybody loves Kaylee. That's kind of like, I'm going to get a t-shirt. Everybody loves Kaylee.
Actually, that wouldn't be a bad t-shirt.
It wouldn't be, actually. I should get that to walk around Springfield with. Everybody loves Kaylee.
There you go.
So we just finished talking to John Sacradotti, and that was probably a month or two ago. And at the end of that, we were talking to him about Springfield, and he was all very positive. And so everybody would have heard that. It was broadcast on June 25th, Thursday, June 25th. It was extra. And,
running extra.
Yeah, running extra.
White flags.
Yeah, I like that. But at the end, you were showing him this cool track mobile you've been working on.
Yeah, so It's actually BLI had produced this trackmobile a few years ago, and you could still get some from different hobby shops. I know we have two in our showcase, which one of them is now in my hands. But so it started out kind of as a dare. We were talking at the shop, me, Tom, and a bunch of other regulars. We were just hanging around the store like you do at any hobby shop, right?
Right.
So we were talking about putting sound in tiny things, and someone said, "I bet you can't do that into a trackmobile." Well, whenever you say that, challenge accepted. So
who makes the trackmobile? The
Broadway Limited.
Broadway Limited.
Yeah, and actually, believe it or not, I thought it was not based on the prototype because I couldn't find any photos of it originally. But it is. So there is a company legitimately called Trackmobile, and you can visit their website at trackmobile.com. But they make these little tractors that used are in industrial plants and various kind of light yard duties.
Right.
Where you don't necessarily need a full-fledged switcher, but you need something to move cars, or like a grain elevator. You need to move the cars to spot the different hopper bays over the discharge chute.
Right.
So these are actually a real thing, and it is diesel powered. But I think the way, when I was looking up and reading about the prototype a little bit, it actually drives kind of like a truck. There's a manual transmission. I don't know if it drives a hydraulic pump or if it's directly connected to the wheels, but you do shift gears in it. So it was kind of cool to look into that.
Yeah, and so did Broadway Limited, like, was this a while ago they had this thing? And
yeah, I remember this being released, I want to say maybe 5 or 6 years ago.
Okay. And
they did okay. It wasn't a huge seller because it was cool, but it was very kind of era specific. It's definitely common for like railroads of 90s and onward.
Yeah, exactly. It's for moving cars around industrial areas. It's like a little tractor. It's like it's like a farm tractor on wheels, only it doesn't, it's just a cab and and a motor. And I wonder what kind of motor these things have in them.
The model or the real thing?
The real thing.
It's powered by a 6-cylinder Cummins diesel.
Really? Just like you get in your Dodge.
Exactly. I think someone made that same comment. I think it was it Josh Bowman? Maybe it was Josh Bowman.
It might have been. Josh.
Yeah,
I know Josh Bowman is listening. Josh, tell us.
Yeah, so I posted this in the fans page a while ago now. And I think Josh made that same comment. Oh, it's just exactly like you get in a Dodge. So then you decided you were gonna. So what? Did it come like as a DCC unit, or did you have to install a decoder in it, or what? You can get both. When it came from factory, you had the option of DCC or regular DC. The ones we have in our shop were all DC, which in hindsight it really doesn't matter. But at any rate, what I ended up doing was when you flip the little trackmobile over. There's some screws that access a cover plate for the gearbox. If you pull that off, you can see there's a cavity that's used for the what would be the DCC decoder if you got it DCC from factory.
All right.
Well, if you hollow that area out a little more, make the walls a little thinner, you could actually slip in a ESU N scale decoder, the micro. It fits perfectly in that same cavity.
Wow.
And then once you get beyond that point, it just becomes like a regular DCC install.
Okay. And then you put sound in it as well.
Right. So the ESU is a sound unit, and what I ended up doing was I ended up gutting the weight that's inside the cab, and then I used my iPhone speaker, cut down, of course, to fit inside. But when it's placed in, it actually kind of looks like it's an overhead console. So it blends in with the aesthetics of the cab.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was serendipitous. I'd had no intentions of doing that, but once I saw, I was like, "Ooh, you know what? If I make it just right and put it centered, it actually looks like it's an overhead console."
Yeah, and of course that's a big word, serendipitous.
Serendipitous, I know.
All right, so here's the post you made. It's 3 a.m. and finally finished installing sound in this little guy. Now, if you and this is where I started to get annoyed because you wanted to put some weight in it, and people started talking about all the different kinds of weight. Adam Panella says put in tungsten putty, which is, when I started to get annoyed because why wouldn't he talk about that before on all the times he's on the podcast? He should have mentioned that before.
So, Adam, hint, hint, wink, wink, talk lots about tungsten putty.
So do you know what that is, tungsten putty?
Yep. So tungsten is actually one of the densest metals that's not radioactive on planet Earth. It's actually heavier than lead.
Wow.
But it's also rarer than lead, so that's why it's very expensive.
So how much does tungsten putty cost?
Tungsten putty itself is not too bad because it's not pure tungsten. It's usually a low-grade tungsten that's mixed in with this tacky stuff to make it sticky.
Right.
To make it like a clay. So normally I think pure tungsten, per gram, it was like almost $100.
Wow. So then Jeff Brigham listed that he bought 1 ounce of tungsten putty on Amazon. And it was a little square of putty and I guess you could just stick that in anywhere you want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The problem with tungsten putty, though, as I'm looking through the model, is that there's a lot of contours on the underbody that the putty won't necessarily fill or be able to get to. So you'll have some of it sticking out. My thing is actually use tungsten powder.
Wow.
And yeah. And actually, I was surprised about this too. Golf club manufacturers use tungsten putty or tungsten powder to weigh down the head of the golf clubs.
Oh, really?
I did not know that.
I did not know that either. I always used, when I was playing a lot of golf, I used lead tape. You could buy lead tape and it was, stick it on the back of a driver or a 3-wood or whatever. But
exactly.
I didn't know about tungsten powder.
Yeah. Well, tungsten's also safer than lead. It won't kill you. Well, if you ingest it, obviously it will do some harm to your body, but it's not going to kill you or harm you like lead will. So a lot of I guess the golf club industry is swinging more towards the pun intended. Ha 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 ha.
Yeah. You're a scream, Alice.
That's right. I'm here all week. Tip your waiter.
I'm gonna effort that while you're talking. Tungsten powder. So, do you have any idea where you would buy such a thing?
Amazon has it, but apparently according to the reviews, it's not tungsten. So I'm thinking either they mix the tungsten powder with steel, or it's a very low grade, cheap, crappy tungsten powder that doesn't have the same weight density as true tungsten powder. There is a website, a company that's dedicated to golf club manufacturers or like smaller do it at home golf club companies that offers it, and I bought a couple of about a pound of it from them, and it was like $40.
Yeah, because there's a company.
No, sorry, it was $70.
Yeah, there's a company north of the border. I think it's in the States too, called GolfWorks, and I see it here, tungsten powder. Yep. And it's like, so a 1/4 pound jar is like, they got it listed for about $25 American.
Yep, that's who I bought it from. Then, yeah,
GolfWorks. Okay.
GolfWorks,
and you got a whole pound of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so now you're gonna try. Would you try to adhere it in there or something, or what?
So the way this is designed, right underneath the cab there's boxy shape sill, right? That is actually hollow on the underside, and that's where all the screws are to screw the mechanism and then the car body to the chassis. Well, my thought was to, once I get all the wires in for the lights, put little tubes over the screw head so it doesn't cover it, so I can always access the screws later on, and then just fill that area with tungsten powder, and then use like super thin super glue to mix it in and bind it all together.
And what kind of lights are you going to put on this thing?
Really, really tiny LEDs, like 0402s. Now that's I think it's 0.4 to 0.2 millimeters in each dimension, length and width.
Holy mackerel! What is your favorite part of the hobby?
It definitely would have to say it's the electronics.
And would this be? You seem like you enjoy the puzzle part of figuring out electronics.
Yeah, actually, a puzzle part in general, because even like I said, switching layout. I used to wanted to have this big layout where I could run long trains and rail fan, take these scenic photos. But at the end of the day, after I started operating, I quickly found myself really enjoying switching a lot more than having run through freights and long mainline runs and stuff like that. Don't get me wrong; they're still fun. But if I had a choice of jobs, I would take the switching job, probably like even the yard jobs, well before the road train jobs.
Yeah, I like switching the yards too, because I like the pressure of here comes another train. You got to sort all the mess out, because the best part of it is it's model railroading, so you want to do a really good job. I always say model railroading operations is like Monopoly. If you don't follow the rules, you ruin the game for everybody else. So I like it. I like working a yard. I don't care if it gets so busy and things get backed up, because it's like a real giant puzzle, and you got to get stuff going. I always like that part of the
right.
When
and the other thing too is that, especially like if I end up becoming the impromptu yard master, I love it. We had a op session in the Amherst group. We have the round robin that we've heard John talk about.
Mm-hmm.
I had the opportunity to operate on one of the fellow club members' layout, and I was working on his 1 yard at the other end of the layout run. He models the Great Northern, or no, it might have been Northern Pacific. Well, somewhere, one of those two railroads, but
right.
Basically out where Kelly lives, shockingly enough.
Yeah.
But in one of the yards, there was no one who signed it up, so I was like, all right, I'll do it. And not only did the job, but I also ended up becoming the impromptu yard master, and was able to direct traffic that needed to go into the yard or bypass the yard, but
cool.
coordinate with another small industry where that crew was going to be needing the main line to do their switch moves.
I always like being a dispatcher too, because I know it's not chic, or I know it's not the accepted way, but I don't mind dispatching on a railroad I've never been on before, because I don't care if people have to stop and wait for me to figure out what's going on next, because that's just real railroading. And people have a tendency, when they're running a model railroad, they don't want to stop or wait. And I think half the fun is adding that human element of, the guy who's doing it. It's not that I can't do it; it's that it's, I'm more deliberate or something like that, or I'm not as familiar. And I think that, and it's the same with operating a yard. Like it's a fun thing to do, because it's a fun puzzle to figure out.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And I don't care if it turns into a schmozzle or I'm slow, because I know I'm okay at it. It's just I'm deliberate, So okay, so you said you were going to put in like brake lights and headlights on this thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the Rio Trackmobile, just like the prototype, it actually is designed to be bimodal, meaning there's 2 modes of how it could run. It could either run on the tracks, which it has the rail wheels, but it could also run on like paved roadways. That's why it also has rubber road wheels. In the post that I posted on the fans page, it's missing the rubber wheels because I took that detail off whilst I was working on it. But it actually does have rubber wheels that it can raise and lower, and could go on paved track, or either on the track or paved roads within the plant.
Ah, okay, all right. So yeah, I see where you're taking those out, and you get the wires hanging down and all that. It's actually a pretty neat model if you get it, and you need some weight so it can at least move one car at a time.
Yeah, I think in that post further down, I actually posted a little video, and there's a bunch of weights that were stacked on top of it. Somehow, some way, I had to figure out how to get 5 ounces into that tiny car body.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah, exactly.
What else are you working on these days?
Well, we got that. The other thing that I'm excited to get started on is the rebuild of one of your locomotives.
I'm excited about that too. Actually, you sent me what's the name of that company where you sent me the drawing stuff?
Oh yeah, so there's a guy in Canada by the name of Michael Eby, EBY, and he does locomotive drawings, scaled locomotive drawings in Microsoft Paint that you can download. His page is called Trainix, .net, I believe. If you Google, the best way to find it is Google Michael Ebby Trainiacs. And it should pop up as one of the first hits.
Yeah, I remember you showing me that. And I've seen that. That's somebody we should interview too. There's too many.
Yeah. Oh, I know.
It's a mess.
It's and so I like using his drawing a lot of times to do like quick and dirty artwork for custom locomotives or whatnot, and that's kind of how I started with my proto freelancing journey. Was that I actually just downloaded an SD70 at one point. Actually, no, sorry, it was a GP40 because my high school CAD teacher. Know what CAD stands for, Lionel?
Computer aided design.
No, Canadian dollar.
I was so close.
Swing and a miss.
Yeah.
No, you're right. CAD, computer aided design. So he was also a model railroader. So when I graduated from high school, I made a special commemorative locomotive, painted it up and whatnot as a thank you gift for him because I spent more or less 4 years with him. And he taught me everything about drafting before going to college. Trust me. And first year when I was in college, when we had to take CAD all over again, I was bored out of my mind. Actually, I was teaching a lot of my classmates because I already did it for 4 years.
Right.
So yeah, as a thank you gift, I painted up an Athearn GP40.
Oh, cool.
In our high school colors. And made the decals and everything like that. But it all started with this site, Michael Ebby, and crafting and trying out the different colors and whatnot.
Huh, that's neat. Now, how long ago had that been? Like 10, 12, 15 years ago?
I graduated high school in 2005. So 15 years ago, yeah.
I was pretty close.
Yeah.
I think this hobby is way bigger than anybody realizes.
Yeah, and you could take it in so many different directions. And that's what's so amazing about this hobby.
Yeah, and the fact now that we're all connected or getting more and more connected all the time is making these directions more and more interesting. Like I noticed the interview with Jason Schron from Rapido. It was downloaded like 1,000 times within like 2 or 3 weeks.
That's impressive.
And I'm thinking, and we're barely scratching the surface of people that are listening to the podcast. I think this hobby is like massively bigger than anybody realizes. I just think we're going to become more connected, and the thing's just going to grow and grow and grow.
Right. And with Gordy and the NMRAX project that he's working on, that's taking the world by storm. Yeah. There's just going to be no end to this, I think.
I know. And, I mean, look at the friendship you and I have and the friendship I have with like Martin or Gordy or Peter Borchards and Nick Carlson, people all over the world and people right around me. It's just, I have so many places and people to go see. It's crazy. Right.
Exactly.
I just love it. I love the fact that we're all becoming more and more connected. I think it's cool. So, all right. So you're taking one of my Jeep 9s and turning it into a chop nose, which is cool. Oh, and by the way, there's 2 ends in Lackawanna. But you haven't got the decals yet, so it's not a major.
Exactly. Hey, that's why it's only a mock-up.
Exactly. And you're still working at Tom's Trains.
Mm-hmm.
And you're helping me a ton these days on the podcast, which I very, very much appreciate. We'll tell everybody that right now on the air. And we're just okay. And how does Kaylee ever get time to work on anything other? I guess the Trackmobile is for yourself.
Right. It is for myself for now. Part of it is just because of the challenge, but I don't know. It may go back to the shop and put on prime display and be sold.
Yeah.
To have someone who really will enjoy it. I don't know. I haven't quite decided. I may keep it for myself. It could go either way right now.
It's a pretty cool connection you got with Tom's Trains because you really enjoy the time you spend there.
Yeah, it's one thing to be able to, and that's the beauty of having a hobby store is that you kind of can get ideas by just socializing. Like I wouldn't have done this if someone didn't say, "I bet you can't do it."
Yeah, yeah, and you might have, yeah, because
and I'll just the word to the listeners, no.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it'd be cool to take it back because. And how does Tom's Train seem to be surviving in the world of? Oh, you know who we got to talk to too is that guy from Maine.
Oh yeah.
What's his name? Tim. What's the name of that store?
Maine Model Works.
Yeah, man, they got some spectacular stuff. All right, let me ask you this question. You've been in the hobby long enough. I think we could say you've been in the hobby almost 25 years now.
Easy.
Yeah, so that's a long time. What'd you say it was Maine Model Works?
Maine Model Works.
So, does it not seem to you that the quality of models over the last 25 years, not just what you can buy, but the quality of models that people like this guy, Maine Model Works, like, you know, he'll weather stuff or he'll make, he'll improve stuff. Does it not seem to you like the quality of everything is improving dramatically?
Exponentially, for sure.
Yeah.
And it's not just also in terms of detailing, right? Like back in the 80s and 90s when Model Railroader had that one book, Detailing Your Locomotives, that was the rage. And then even weathering was kind of, okay, generic. It wasn't really anything specific. You dirtied up your locomotive. It looks nice. Okay, moving on. Now with I think in general, people tend to be either building smaller layouts or not buying houses as young as people used to do. More and more people are actually focusing more on the modeling side than it is on the railroading side. And I think that's the big shift that we're seeing is that the attention is more on the modeling versus in years prior, it was more focused on the railroading side. And that's not to say that the railroading side isn't popular. I mean, we have plenty of people who are doing prototype operations. But I think the models themselves in general are now becoming, like you said, more and more detailed, more and more spectacular just because it's a new avenue.
Yeah, like we were talking to Ron Kleiser not that long ago, and he was talking about how much he enjoys building the dioramas that he uses to display his structures for when he takes to shows. And you can see that. Like, I think building and creating is going to come full circle almost, you know, where it's like, okay, like, yeah, it's fun to buy a model that's completely done and then get it weathered, even if you send it to somebody else. But I think more and more people are going to get drawn back into trying to make something themselves.
Yeah, and I think with the advent of 3D printing and laser printers, or not laser cutters, I think scratch building is going to have a renaissance. But it's going to come back in a way that is so foreign that what we traditionally think of scratch building is like throw it out the window.
Yeah. Yeah, like I don't think we have any idea what this hobby is going to be like in 10 years.
No, I don't think so. And with what Martin is showing, the amount of technology that's available you could do, like Martin Jenkins' big thing is having that RC, HO scale RC cars.
Yeah.
Who would have thought 20 years ago that we would be able to drive the cars on a layout, much like us being able to drive a locomotive like the real thing?
Yeah. Or who would have thought? And I mean, I've always enjoyed ever since the first time I got published in MR. I mean, who would have thought 26 years later I'd be able to do this and connect with so many people? Like you say, Martin loves to talk about his RC cars. I love talking to him about it. I mean, I feel like myself, I got kind of burned out on the hobby a bit. The podcast got me back into it. I never left the hobby ever. It's always, once it's in your blood, it's always there. But I'm starting to get the itch of, I got to build something. And I don't care if it's a DPM kit or a Walther's kit or something. I just getting that itch of, I got to build something, you know, just for the heck of it. You know, it's,
right.
That's what the hobby does for you. It helps this thing that people have in it. Like like most model railroaders is they all want to build something. You know, I've toyed with the idea and I don't want to do it because it would just be one more thing I'd have to organize. And as you know full well, I've told you at great length that the number one thing I concentrate on is getting the podcast out and everything else comes second. That's why I know I should do better getting everybody out, make new t-shirts for everybody, but it's kind of like, the podcast.
Yeah.
But I think it'd be cool to have like a structure building contest or a rolling some to get the. But then you get that's a whole nother thing altogether.
Well, we could know what we could do is we could offer enlist our Patreon supporters or for help, or actually our listeners. I shouldn't say Patreon. Anyone in our listener base who's interested in doing something like this and wants to help out host it, send us an email at modelerslife@gmail.com.
There you go. Of course. Again, it's one L like Kaylee, not two L's like Lionel.
Exactly.
Kaylee, you are swell. Thanks for being on the podcast, and thanks for helping me as much as you do.
Oh, absolutely. It's my pleasure. It's been a blast.
It's been a blast, and it will continue to be a blast. We are having too much fun to stop now. All right. Hey, we're going to go on to the next segment. You know what I have to do now?
I think so.
All right, go for it.
Subway chimes, go!
Okay, so hello, everybody. Hello, sports fans in Canada and across the U.S. This is Foster Hewitt.
You need the little going in the background. Yeah.
When I was a wee lad, I used to listen to NHL games, and there was a guy. Foster Hewitt was historic in Canada. He was the Toronto Maple Leafs announcer, and he always came on with the same line. It was something to the effect of, I'm paraphrasing, "Hello, hockey fans across Canada and the U.S. and in Newfoundland." Oh, yeah, I almost forgot about you people out on the rock.
Right. Don't want you to slip off there into the North Atlantic. Yeah.
Because they are a half an hour ahead of us, the rest of North America.
I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah.
They're that far over. Okay.
Yeah,
wow.
So, and it's a half hour. It's like...
Oh, wait. It's not an hour? It's a half an hour?
It's 30 minutes.
See, I don't think you should legally be able to do that. Like, I've seen that in I saw some list of the world time zones, and I think, like, Iran is a half hour different, instead of an hour this way or that. I'm like, you're just trying to be difficult.
Yeah, like, how do you end up 30 minutes? You're one little... Right. And it's Newfoundland, which is way, way out there in the east. But it's not a big area. And it's Newfoundland and Labrador. For some reason or other, they've got an island that they call Newfoundland, and then they have Labrador, which is another section that's just part of the mainland, and it's way out there in the east.
Now, is all that connected? Because wasn't it that railroad like Quebec, North Shore, and Labrador? Were they all connected?
Yeah, so by coinkydink, we talked to a fella named Serge Lebel. Hey, Serge, how you doing? And he's a locomotive engineer out of Sept-Îles, Quebec, which is way out east. Where the St. Lawrence River starts to open up into the just before you get to Newfoundland, and he runs from Sept-Îles, which all the way to Labrador City, which is 257 miles or something like that. And so Labrador is on the mainland, is a part of the Canadian, I don't know, whatever you call it, wherever you're stuck to the main. It's not like Australia where Martin Jenkins and Rod Diary are just stuck on a gigantic island.
Right.
It's part of the mainland, and then Newfoundland is separate. So,
is Australia big enough that you would not consider it an island, though?
I would, except it's exactly in the shape of an island.
I mean, I get that it does look like an island, but so would like Africa from out in space. That's not an island, but
that's true.
So there must be where's the demarcation point of? Okay, Hawaii's an island, Australia's a continent. I think Australia's a continent, isn't it?
I believe it is.
Yeah, so I guess that's probably the dividing line. Yeah, if you get continent status, you're not an island.
Is it square footage? Like how in a certain square footage you have a house, and beyond that you have a mansion?
I'm guessing it is. I'll bet you there is some like rule of thumb of I mean, like if Australia was say a couple kilometers smaller, it's like, oh, sorry, you're an island. But no, I guess they're big enough to count. But then you got New Zealand is definitely an island, right? I mean, that would be yeah. So, but again, it's a lot smaller. So yeah, I'll have to look that up, but I'll bet there is. Yeah.
But Australia looks like an island.
I agree. Oh yeah, I mean to look at it's like it's an island, but it's a G gauge island.
Yeah, it's a 1-to-1 island.
Definitely. Oh yeah.
And it takes apparently it takes roughly, it's a long flight from Sydney to Perth. It's like 5 hours.
Wow.
Qantas.
Hmm.
Yeah, so it's a long, long ways across Australia.
Have you ever been down there? Have you ever been down to see Martin Jenkins?
I have never been to Australia, and that has now been added to the list of places I have to go. Here's a problem I have. I would really like to go see Adam Pinellas and Chris Brimley.
I do too. Yeah, I mean our coming trip this year. I said earlier this week, I got to see this railroad that Adam's building out in Utah.
Yeah, and but I can't really. I don't know. Can I go to see them before I go to see Joe and Kelly up there in Medford? That's the problem.
Yeah, because Utah's. I mean, that's just on the other side of Colorado.
Yeah.
I mean, for us to go all the way out to Oregon, that's at least another day and a half driving.
Well, and then I've got people I could fly with, and I want to try out Southwest Airlines, right? I want to try. I'm going to put my name and my address on pin it to my shirt, and I want to try. And they have that rush seating where you get. I'm convinced I'm going to get trampled in the aisles of a 730.
That's an urban legend. That thing about Southwest and the cattle call. I have flown Southwest a number of times, and I can tell you that I've never basically seen the gate goes back and it's the running of the bulls. No, not like that at all. No.
Okay.
So don't worry about that. Yeah, that's not an issue.
I won't get trampled in the aisles or nothing.
No, and right now I think when I see some of the stuff about travel and how everything's so down, I'm thinking, man, this would be the time.
Oh yeah,
to be on the California Zephyr or the Southwest Chief, because the trains are, it's so low as far as people riding. You basically have the train to yourself.
Oh yeah. As soon as I don't know when we'll air this. Probably we're recording this on June the 5th, and I can imagine we'll air it sooner rather than later. But as of right now, the border is not open, and I'm standing there every night. I'm banging on the door, on the glass door, and I'm looking. I'm saying, "Hey, can you guys let me in?" And they're going, "We're closed." Hey, buddy, we're closed.
Well, it is unbelievable. It is unbelievable. Yeah. They got to get this stuff back together for our fall run. I bought that new Lincoln for us to go.
I know you got that hot rod Lincoln.
So we got a brand new red Lincoln to take out this year.
I know. I love the fact that you bought a red one.
Isn't that nice? The first one I test drove was black, and I thought, I really like this. And that's the sedan Lincoln, the MKZ that I had was black, and I thought, this is good. And boy, we got out of that at the dealership. I saw that red one. I'm like, let me drive this red one. And that was it. It's like, I got to have it.
And I've yet to see a picture of the Caddy and the Lincoln side by side. I mean, that would be a cool picture. They're both red, and the reds must be pretty close together.
They're pretty close. The Lincoln's just a touch darker than the pearl red of the Eldorado. But I need to get a picture of them together. I have not.
And whenever I see one of those Nautilus in the parking lot, I go, yeah, I'd look pretty good in one of those.
The other day I was out and I was in traffic down in the north part of Kansas City. This guy pulls up next to me, and I got Bandit there in the front seat with me, and I kind of, the corner of my eye, I see the guy's like waving or motioning or something, and I'm like, okay, what's up with this joker? So I kind of glance over like, huh?
Yeah.
And it's this old guy waving at me, and I'm like, what is this? And then I see the name badge on the car is just below the mirror. Yeah. And I see Nautilus. I'm like, oh, he's got a Lincoln just like mine. And I kind of like, yeah. But at first I'm thinking, Bandit, don't look over to your right, but there's somebody what is that guy doing? Can you tell?
Yeah. Now, just so people understand, and just so it clear it up for me as well. But when you say Bandit, you don't mean Burt Reynolds.
Oh, no. Wouldn't that be something that would be riding around with Burt?
Yeah.
No. This is my 3-year-old Chiweenie Bandit that rides in the front seat. He's shotgun with me. Yeah.
Yeah. He bounces around like an Indian rubber ball.
Oh, he is. He's got a lot of it. I'm still waiting for him to, either take after me and be a little more lazy or something to kind of get into a stride. At least he doesn't chew everything to death anymore. So that's good.
I'm trying to avoid starting this podcast because this has become my ace in the hole whenever we're taking little pot shots at each other on Facebook. And you hit me with a good one. I'm always going like our most recent one was I was mentioning Planet of the Apes, which I ended up watching the original one from '68.
Oh, did you? Wow, yeah.
Yeah, and it's actually quite poignant. And I had tried to make a poignant statement, and I had a picture of the last scene from Planet of the Apes, and then
spoiler alert. for anybody that's not seen it. If you're about to give away what it is.
Yeah, for anybody that's not seen it.
Oh, okay. All right. Anyway, go ahead.
And you made light of it, and then I was able to go. You talked about how they didn't listen to the podcast, and then I was able to say, well, they stopped listening when the product news ended, but now here we are doing product news. So I'm really torn. Do I allow product news to continue, or do I keep it back on the shelf so that I can pull that out as every?
So that you got that to basically, that's your stick to poke at me in my cage with.
Yeah. Exactly. It's my stick to poke at you. Yeah. You're Charlton Heston, and I'm Roddy McDowell.
Oh, it's a madhouse. Yeah.
It's a madhouse. You know
what a tour de force for him. And it works. I mean, the guy's chomping scenery like unbelievable. And yet, somehow he pulls it all. I mean, who would think with these people in ape makeup that you'd pay more attention to this guy in a loincloth screaming and yelling? Yet you do. I mean, that's wow. Yeah.
I got a question for you, and I'd like a really honest answer. I mean, we enjoy each other's company immensely. We live on the same continent. Granted, we are divided by a foot-wide line. I think in some places it's even as narrower than that. And but we live in the same continent. We basically have the same. And it seemed to me that Charlton Heston wasn't that good of an actor.
I've had people say that. I've seen that in interviews and things, where they deride him a little bit. And I think what I would say of Heston is that he is more a movie star or a personality. I mean, there's things like Will Penny where he really does maybe try to put up forth an acting job. But for the most part, I think he quickly realized, whether, it was Ben-Hur or Airport 1975, that I'm Charlton Heston, and that's what they have me here for. I'm not Robert De Niro disappearing into this role. And so, yeah. And I met Heston. I met Heston.
Did you really?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. In the 90s, when he had a biography that came out, I met him at a book signing in St. Louis. And, seemed larger than life, came out with his hands raised, everybody applauded and such. I had taken my little brother with me to meet him, and he signed the book for us. And, of course, I told him my favorite movie was The Omega Man, which I'm sure didn't impress him, considering he's got a lot better credits than that. But, I could have said worse. What's that horrible Mountain Men with Brian Keith? I could have said something like that.
Yeah. I think you're supposed to, isn't the go-to the one, what is the one with the chariots? What's it called?
Oh, yeah, I think Ben-Hur.
Yeah.
59's Ben-Hur. It's best picture, like 10 or 11 Oscars, 200 and some minutes to sleep through with swords and sandals. Yeah, there you go. That's the picture. But in honesty, if I wanted to sit down and see a Charlton Heston film, it'd be Apes, it'd be Omega Man, Soylent Green, Airport 75. Earthquake, where he's married to Ava Gardner as a drunk. I mean, let's get some entertainment here rather than put me to sleep with chariot races.
And I guess too that I will stop now. But I mean, I guess too the thing you have to keep in mind is there were some great actors, but I guess some guys were just hired because they could in fact speak and could be audible. But really, why they were hired and put out there was because of their physique.
I mean, their star. Yeah. It's like, I'm here because you want to see me in a movie, not I want to see a well-acted story. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think there was any roles that Charlton Heston disappeared into, like De Niro.
As I say, I think it's like mid-60s. There's a Western called Will Penny that he always liked and said was his best role. And I've seen it before, and it's kind of low-key, and there's a lot of him in it, but then he does, I mean, if you really want to see him, quote-unquote, act, maybe that one. But again, is that really, it's like opening a can of Coke and saying, I want the bubbly caramel colored sugar water. Don't pawn this off as some finely aged beverage. So yeah, again, I'm here for Heston, and put on the aviator sunglasses and make that grimace of a face and land the 747 in Salt Lake. Yeah.
Is that where they landed finally? It was in Salt Lake?
Yeah, it was the red eye from Dulles International in Washington, D.C. to Los Angeles. And, of course, they have the midair collision that sucks Efren Zimbalist Jr. No, he makes it. He makes it. Yeah, he makes it. He gets, it's Roy Finesse from the the Invaders TV show.
Yeah.
I think he's blown out of the plane. Ephraim Zimbalist is taken to the back, and they put a blanket over him, and he basically doesn't have to do anything for the rest of the movie. And I think Eric Estrada, the radio, maybe falls on him and kills him, the poor guy. So there's your crew, and then we're left with Karen Black until Heston's dropped into the plane.
And let's not forget, give Zimbalist some credit there. Ephraim, give Ephraim some credit. He did manage to get the autopilot turned on.
Yes. Oh, yeah. I think he does do that, or
he tells Karen
Black to flip on the autopilot.
He keeps himself awake enough or alert enough that he can tell Karen to turn on the autopilot.
What a fantastic film! And Helen Reddy singing as a nun to Linda Blair, who had just done The Exorcist. I mean, come on, that's a film I could watch that once a week. Yeah, what a great movie!
All right, so what's new and what have you got? So product news. What's news? What's new in the world of product news?
I'm so excited to announce that Athearn is taking their Genesis locomotive and making it a Genesis model, which I've often heard that derided over the years. How come their Genesis diesel isn't a Genesis model? And of course, we're talking about General Electric's AMD 103 or P42. It goes by both names. That was the 4-axle locomotive that GE built in the early 90s, and it ended up replacing the EMD F40PHs that were Amtrak's kind of standard motive power. And these P42s are now kind of at the end of their game and are slowly being replaced today, but were the mainstay and still are for most of the trains. And Athearn first brought that out as a blue box kit in the late 90s, and then it moved to their ready-to-roll line with some enhancements in the 2000s. And now it's going to come back with sound, DCC, and several updates as an Athearn Genesis locomotive. And the first round of paint schemes has been announced. They're doing a couple of the Heritage, the Amtrak Phase 2 with the equal width red and blue stripes, and then the Amtrak Phase 4, which is the thick blue band with the thin red and white pinstripes above it. And then all of those releases say 1971 to 2011 on their side with the Amtrak name and are very popular. And then there's some Amtrak Phase 5s. And then Phase 3 was the scheme those units were delivered in. That's with kind of the equal red, white, and blue bands running up from the nose and back on a silver body. And then they're also doing, you Canucks up there had some, that there were Canadian Via. They'll be doing some of those as well. If you look on YouTube or Athearn's Facebook, they did one of their hour train shows on it recently and kind of went over the things and showed some of the 3D early stuff of where the speakers are going to be, the upgrades to the pilots and the back ends for hoses and a better snow plow and details. But it should really be a nice piece because it's a well-needed model. And it kind of one of those that a lot of guys, that ready to roll is fine, but it started out as a blue box and boy, it still needs this or that. So hopefully this is going to be a really nice version of this. They're planning for a May 2021 release. And right now they're taking orders through the end of June to pre-order it. And you can find out more at athearn.com on the new Genesis locomotive. How about that?
And how much different is the Genesis from the non-Genesis? Is it like do they just add a lot of detail and the list price is $324.98? Is that correct?
Well, that may be Canadian price. I think.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
The U.S. price with sound, it'll have DCC and Soundtrack Tsunami 2 are $289.98, and without sound they're $199.98.
You did say the SDP P40F, right?
P42. Now they did the SDP40F. That's a big 6-axle cowl unit from the early 70s that ended up being a problem for Amtrak with derailments and such, and they ended up scrapping those within a year or two. And some of them made it into the 80s, but generally the writing was on the wall for them within about a year or so of them coming out, and the little 4-axle F40PH took over. So the P42 is that next follow-up that GE made in the early 90s. It's kind of that sleek, shovel-nosed, round body unit that you see on most long-distance trains today.
All right. I see now on their website, they haven't got it. I don't think they've got it listed yet because I see the SDP 45 and the SD60 under the Genesis. So maybe they haven't got it out here yet.
Well, let me look here. I thought it was.
Well,
HO scale Genesis.
maybe I'm not very good at working the intranet.
No, it's not on that exact page, but if you go to Athern's main page and hit the What's New.
Oh, okay, there we go.
And then you'll see it. At the moment, it's right underneath, or it's about the third one down. Announced Friday, May 29th, 2020.
Yeah.
HO AMD 103 P42s.
Yeah. That's it.
So it should be pretty slick.
Oh, yeah, that's going to be nice. And let's see what the, well, I bet you the price is right here because it's a PDF, so that won't have changed. $289.98. There it is.
Yeah.
Without sound, $199.98. With Tsunami 2, I think Soundtracks now has taken the lead again in the decoder wars.
They've had a lot of new updates recently. My assistant editor, Shane T. Mason, a.k.a. the Young Gun, has been out there to visit him in Durango, and they're working on some new drop-in N-gauge DCC units that he supplied some sample models and things for him to work with. So we're eager to see. There should be some new announcements we're expecting this summer on some new drop-in decoders.
Now, do you ever request particular product from companies? Like if they don't voluntarily send it to you, will you request? Can you send me this product or that product? And now we are talking with. For those who, I don't think I formally introduced you.
I don't think you did, yeah. So there's probably a lot of people saying, well, is this someone you met on the street? And said, can you come in and talk about, model trains? And they go, well, yeah, I guess so, sure.
I'm kind of starting to fashion myself as the Piers Morgan of model railroad broadcasting. Just, I just got attitude up the yin yang, and it's like, if you don't know who I am and who my guest is, then I don't think you should be listening.
Okay, yeah. Well, anyhow, we will, let me roll out the red carpet a little better than that, or put out the welcome mat. But yes, I'm Tony Cook, the editor of White River Productions Model Railroad News, monthly magazine on all scales model trains, and also the co-editor of HO Collector Quarterly, also from White River Productions. And you can find all that good stuff out by going shop.whiteriverproductions.com and see our ever-growing list of periodicals and books and other great things that the company puts out. And magazine is also on Facebook, so you can go Model Railroad News, look it up on Facebook, and it also has a website. So yeah,
White River Productions is a very well-run company, and it's fun to be. And I think people should know, and I think most people do. Not only do we associate from a business standpoint with the podcast and the magazine, but you and I are fast friends and have been known to do the occasional road trip together.
This is true. And we have yet another one in the works for 2020, which will be, we haven't named it yet.
No.
I can't, we're going out west again, so I've been toying with, Pacific Pandemic Express or something. But.
Well, and in there I have to fit in a lot of, I got to practice my Southwest flying. For our official flight attendant, Tracy Boyd, in case I ever bump into her, I feel like I want to be a seasoned Southwest traveler. Like I don't want to accidentally stumble into, the first flight I ever get on is out of Buffalo on Southwest, and she sees me tripping down the aisle, and it's like, oh my God, it's the first time ever, So
that would be embarrassing.
It would be. It would just be embarrassing. Because in Canada, all the seats are reserved.
Are they?
Oh, yes. There's no bumping. There's no. If they tried to bump somebody off a flight in Canada, I think the company would be disbanded, and the president would. It would be like, and he'd be forced to fall on his propeller blade, and they just, in Canada we have reserve seats.
You guys come off as these really nice, non-argumentative neighbors to the north, but honestly, I wouldn't want to meet any of you in an alley with your hockey sticks. I think you're a dangerous bunch, and what you've just said there about reserve seating, how you wouldn't put up with what we put up with to get on planes, it shows me that this is that, what is it, speak softly and carry a big stick, and it's a hockey stick. So yeah, I would never get into a fight with you.
Have you ever heard of we don't consider it candy. We consider it nutritional snack called Smarties.
I am so glad you brought that up, and it's so appropriate that it would be included in a news podcast, because if you do follow the Fans of a Modeler's Life or the Modeler's Life pages, I think you have seen there has been some controversy that Smarties in the U.S., and of course I think those of us in the U.S. have this pompous thought that whatever we call it, whatever we think it is right, and why doesn't the rest of the world just get on the same page? But, I don't know why that is, and I will apologize for that. But the whole Smarties thing, Smarties are those little chalky, kind of like Sweet Tarts candies that I remember as a kid the bank used to give out when we drive through, to deposit a check or whatever.
Right.
And then I find out you guys have these Canadian Smarties, and they're made by Nestle, which, is a reputable company and a candy maker that I think is U.S. based. So what are they doing pawning these fake Smarties? And that has been the hashtag that I've been starting that I think soon will be trending. The fake Smarties hashtag of what are these things? And when it was finally kind of explained to me, I thought, well, they're just M&Ms. So you people have been fooled into buying, you think you're buying Smarties, you're really buying M&Ms. And then I've gotten these arguments from like Peter Borchard's and some of the other folks that are associated with the, Modeler's Life that no, they're not M&Ms. And so I thought, well, I'm never going to find out about this unless I go to Canada and can try them. But one of the fans of Modeler's Life, one of our friends, Patrick Loveley, has sent out, and several of us have gotten these now. So I'm sure all of these packages going out, I would guess it's under investigation by the Postal Service. But I got my 2 packages of Smarties, and then Tom Jacobs, 0013 in Pennsylvania, got the same package, and Adam Pinellas in Utah looks like he got the same package. So again, I'm sure this is now being looked at, by someone of what is this stuff distributing Smarties, these fake Smarties in the U.S. But I'm going to have to say, I've eaten the small package. I'm now on the package of red and white Smarties, which has the maple leaf on the bag, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
And while, yes, they are chocolate coated in candy, which by definition will be, well, that's an M&M, but they're not. That, yes, it is, as I think Peter Borchard said, it's a creamier, better milk chocolate, and I would agree. And I find the candy coating is different than M&M's, that it's like crisper or more crunchy when you bite into them than M&M's. So M&M's generally are chalky, more hard chocolate, and these somehow are much different. I have to confess that I'm now a bit of a fan of them, and I'm going to have to look on like Amazon and see where I can buy, like a case of Smarties and have them snuck across the border. So yeah, it's a revelation to me. I still say they're fake Smarties, though. I mean, now let's get back to the brass tacks on this. Smarties. I mean, these should be Nestle's Canadian M&Ms or something.
Well, and I think you touched on one thing. You said, that the Smarties that you knew were those chalky, sugary candy that you get at the bank or something. And really, I'm imagining, I'm almost positive that your Smarties were, in fact, nothing but chalk dust with sugar added to it.
Well, and you guys have them there, didn't I? think Ralph Renzetti said those are what, rockets?
Oh, yeah, but that's Ralph, for crying out loud. That was Bruce, the moderately agitated mailboy, was very, he was agitated and insisting they're rockets. And it's like, what's that got to do with the fact that Smarties are Smarties?
Well, I don't know. But again, I think this, considering how close we are in the U.S. and Canada, I would expect a can of Coke is a can of Coke. You hear these crazy things like they reformulate Coke for different markets, for different tastes. So you grab a can of Coke in Sri Lanka and it's like, oh, what is this? It's like, well, they like a little bit of lime juice and Worcestershire sauce in it. It's like, what in the world for? But, again, I would assume our stuff is the same, basically. How different could it be? So this to me is amazing that there's this confusion over Smarties, rockets, M&Ms. I mean, I feel like something need to be standardized. But again, it's like the whole metric, and we're on the British standard or whatever we saw that, which I will apologize for that too. I feel like that's the worst trick we ever played on you guys. Is in the 70s, we said, okay, all of us here in North America are going to get onto the metric thing. We get it. We got to do it. Here's 2-liter bottles of Dr. Pepper. Come on, get on board. And you guys did. And then we all were like, we're not really going to do that.
Yeah.
Who can make sense of kilometers and liters? And no, we're not doing that. And then somebody later said, well, everybody in Canada did. It's like, oh, well, don't say anything to them.
Well, and that's like, I took that as basically a personal slight because that happened in the last year and a half of me finishing high school. And it's like, in 1970, when I was 60, is when when I was 16, is when they started to convert this. And I was just entering, grade 11, and it was like halfway. And for the last year of high school, they're trying to teach us the metric system. And we're like, wait a minute, for the last 17 years, you've been teaching us the imperial. And now as we're about to go out into the world and make our fortune, we have to learn a whole new measuring system. And
that's terrible.
And the whole time they're going, well, they're going to do it in the States. And I remember being in the principal's office going, I'm telling you, these guys are not going to do this. There's no way. It's a trick. No. They've assured us that they also are going to switch to metric.
Well, we will go back to that principal's office. Yeah. And we will give that person their comeuppance and go, look, this guy told you this back in 1970. You did all this to him. Now, he's a mess. He thinks everything's milliliters and how many kilometers is that to wherever. None of us know what he's talking about, and it's your fault.
Well, I know how I'm going to get back at you.
Oh, how's that?
When we're all standing around eating our Smarties and you hear people snickering, that's because you won't have left the red ones to the last.
And yeah, what is that? Because I was halfway through that first box of mixed colored ones when somebody said, don't eat the red ones. And I thought, uh-oh.
Yeah, you eat them last.
And I didn't break out in spots or anything for having eaten them wrong.
Not yet.
Yeah.
And
then I got this bag of red and white ones that I'm going to obviously have to pour out onto a plate so I can eat them appropriately. And what is that? Why can you not eat the red ones?
For the same reason you can't have ketchup on your hot dog after the age of 8. Does there have to be a reason?
No, I guess. No, all right. Okay. I shouldn't question it.
Yeah, you shouldn't question
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah. And I don't suppose you've ever had an Aero bar either, have you? AERO.
No, I have no idea what that is.
That's a really good chocolate bar.
Well, like what is it really? Is it like a Milky Way or a Three Musketeers? I mean, is this another one of those things where we all call it this, but you would just call it red? It's like, okay,
It is. It's like, do you have Mirage bars down there?
No.
Oh man, it's chocolate filled with air. Is what it is.
Chocolate filled with air. I can't wait. Bring some of those down. But that's wow. I'm looking forward to those. Bring some of those for the road trip in September, so we can have these chocolate air bars in the Lincoln. Soon we'll be stopping in Topeka, about an hour down the road, to get some real candy for the trip. But please bring some of those Aero bars.
And what's the color of the interior of the hot rod Lincoln?
It's tan colored.
Oh, that's not going to look good with melted chocolate all over it.
No, but the good thing about it is that MKZ, remember, had black leather and black, dash. And Bandit, being a light colored dog, and even though he's short haired, I don't know how, but that dog just literally sheds all the time. Everywhere he goes, there's a pile of hair. I don't know why the dog's not bald. But so anyhow, it is nice that now the seat and the dash and stuff around him, I know there's dog hair there, but I can't see it like I used to be able to see it when it was black interior. So I do like that. Yeah.
If you can't see it, it doesn't exist.
It's not there. So yeah, I don't always get in the car going, oh, look at all that dog hair. Yeah.
Do you know where the world headquarters for Nestle is?
It is in the U.S. Am I right?
Switzerland.
Oh my gosh, is that right?
Yeah, it is. The headquarters for Nestle is in Switzerland. Where exactly is? Contact our headquarters in Switzerland.
Wow. And see, there again, there's that pompous American attitude of, well, obviously, it's Nestle companies here in the U.S. I mean, I agree that I see why a lot of people have disparaging remarks about us. So,
and you know who else is in Switzerland? Our buddy Nick Carlson.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, wasn't he at the barbecue in 2018, 2019?
Last year, 2019.
Wow.
And he had his tickets. He all purchased for Tom stock. Yeah, so it's spelled Vevey, Veve, Switzerland.
Wow.
Yeah. 1800 Nestle Avenue.
How about? Well, no wonder. That's why they set their headquarters there.
Yeah, exactly.
I always like that when I'm reading like a railroad history book and they'll say something like, the town was named this or that. I'm like, that's funny. That was the guy that surveyed that line. It's like, well, no wonder he put his name on one of the towns. Like, oh, okay, yeah.
Our little known fact: Mind Mount Models, owned by our very own Ron Kleiss. It's on a street called Mind Mount.
How about that?
Yeah.
Wow.
Coincidence? I wonder if which was started first. Had he started the model company before he moved to that home, or did he start the model company after he moved to that home? Be interesting to know.
Probably, it could be either. I'd have told a real estate agent, look, I got this company. Can you find me a house on a street, that matches it? Like if I was to move, I'd have to say, can you find me a house on H.O. Collector Avenue? We'll look.
Is there any other news, or is that it?
Oh, no, yes. There's a little bit. We'll do one more news item. Our buddy Jason Schron
Yes.
at Rapido Trains has Fairbanks Morse H1644s announced. And this was their 4-axle mid-1950s locomotive. It looks a little bit like a baby Trainmaster. And those are coming out, I think it's next year sometime. And naturally, a lot of road-specific details. Baltimore and Ohio, Milwaukee Road, New Haven, Norfolk and Western, Penn Central, a real pretty yellow and black Virginian, Canadian National in that early green scheme, and Canadian Pacific in the maroon and gray with the yellow stripes on the end. Will be a very neat locomotive. I'm working right now on research. I've got Paul Withers from Diesel Era, his softcover book I borrowed from my dad, and am reading up on those because there was the H1544 and it was followed by the 1644, and the nomenclature on that, the 15 and 16 refers to horsepower, so 1500 or 1600, and then the 44 is 4-axle. So like a Trainmaster, the bigger unit is an H2466, which would be 2400 horsepower and 6-axle, so 6.6. And then this one is the smaller version of that. And it looks like what Rapido is announcing is the later production H1644s. Should be a really awesome model.
I wasn't a big fan of that one.
You don't like that?
I find it be that's a real plain Jane unit.
Well, but that's what you'd think. Now, if you pick up that softcover book that Diesel Era put out,
right.
I was really amazed at it was owned by a lot more roads than you think, because after World War II, so many, they were all in a rush to buy diesel, so it was basically a seller's market. And so a lot of roads that you wouldn't think would ever own a Fairbanks Morse product, like Rio Grande had them, Union Pacific had some. These would be the earlier, I think, 1544s. But again, I kind of had the same thought too of, oh, really, he's doing that? Well, there was that Bachmann Spectrum, I think, was done first. And then there's an Atlas Master line. They did a couple of versions. And I really was not as familiar with it as, say a Jeep 7 or 9, where off the top of my head, I'd have an idea. And again, looking through that book and reading up on it, they're really a neat, those were the opposed piston design was the Fairbanks Morse prime movers in them.
Yeah.
But take a look at rapidotrains.com and search up that HO scale H1644 and do a little looking. And I think you'll be surprised at the folks that had them. And it's a neat first generation diesel.
Oh, there's a ton of them. There's a ton of, that's going to be a great model. And, I think that they'll be able to do a lot with that because there's not a lot of, the shell or the body itself was fairly straightforward. So I think they're going to be able to do a lot of super detail with this.
Oh, it'll be very nice. Yeah, it'll be a really neat piece.
They're going to, you can pre-order it. Let me see. Okay. Well, now again, I've got the Canadian price. Oh, wait a minute. There's the US price. $335.
That's with DCC and sound.
And then DC silent. That's an interesting way of putting it. The DC silent.
Yes.
$225 American. Milwaukee Road had them. New Haven had them. They'll be popular with the New Haven guys.
And I think, Rapido works a lot with the New Haven Historical Society. If you look on their website, their 3D rendering you can see is a New Haven right up by the cab. It has that funny, I don't know what you call them. They're not really an air horn. That New Haven had kind of a unique horn system, and you can see that mounted to the side. So the New Haven may be one of the reasons they got into doing this model, but I think it's going to be a neat piece for them.
It sure is. And then they got Norfolk and is that Burt Reynolds or is that Bandit?
Oh, the barking in the background. I'm
Yeah.
afraid that's Bandit, and I don't know what has moved us to DEF CON 4.
He's excited. He's excited about the Fairbanks Morse.
He might be. He's more of an Alco dog, but it might be. I'm not sure. But and again, sometimes I hear all this barking, and I expect like to go out on the front porch and see like zombies lurking in the neighborhood or Soviet tanks coming down Maple Street, and it's like, oh my gosh. And a lot of times I go out there and there's just a squirrel eating out of the gutter. And it's like, oh, really? Yeah.
And they're going to have a ton of road names in this thing.
They really are, yeah. The Norfolk and Western, those were inherited from the Virginian, and that's why they're in that Pevler blue with the yellow hamburger logo. That would be from, they took over Virginian, I think, around 1960, and that scheme is the 64 version of Norfolk and Western when the road expanded with nickel plate and Wabash going into a system. And that's a nice-looking scheme.
How do you know?
What's that?
I was going to say, how do you know so much stuff?
You do too. Think about all the stuff you know.
I don't really know anything. I barely know how to turn on my computer. Like I struggle with trying to remember how to get my car started because here's why I'm asking this question. We'll just cover this last subject and then we'll move forward. Today, you have an excellent ability to send me many memes and things that are relevant to the day's news and whatever, and we entertain each other endlessly. Mostly you entertain me, and then I pass them on to my son and blah 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 and other people. And today I thought, I found one that was really funny, and I sent it to you, and it was it was of the guys that replaced the Bo and Luke or whoever the guys were on Dukes of Hazzard, John Snyder and
Tom Wopat.
They got into a CBS wouldn't pay them, so then they brought in their cousins.
Yeah.
Which was a complete bust and a total bust. It was a complete bust. And I send this off, and of course I didn't know the characters' names, and you knew their names, Coy and Vance.
Yeah. How ridiculous is that? And one is blonde-headed, again, it's like, well, we got these near clones of you. We're going to put them in the orange Dodge, and they're going to roll off the next 20-some episodes this season while you guys give us trouble. And yeah, that was kind of the jump the shark moment, I guess, for CBS's Dukes of Hazzard. And they did end up getting Warner Brothers and CBS to, meet their salary demands. And they come back at the end of that season. And I think the episode plays out with Coy and Vance basically leaving the back door of like Uncle Jesse's house as Bo and Luke arrive. Like they wouldn't even do a scene of, see you later. You hear like tires squealing in the background. And, Daisy says something like, oh, you missed Coy and Vance, which you could have seen them. It's like, oh, yeah, we missed them all right. Yeah. But, that happens. Anytime I start to give trouble on the magazine, the Udalies are quick to tell me we'll get cousin whoever to come and do the, it's like, oh, wow, okay. So I pipe back down and keep cranking out magazines.
All right. There you go. Okay. So give out the email address. It's it's modeler'slife@gmail.com. But if you go to our website and just click on the picture of Bruce, the moderately agitated mailboy in a particularly agitated state, you don't even need to know the address because it'll automatically send an email for you.
Isn't that amazing? Technology is unbelievable.
I know. That was done by our IT department.
Wow.
Which is actually, I think it's overstaffed at this particular moment, but there's problems down there. I think I'm going to send in Coy and Vance.
Use the cousin threat. Just say, look, you either get this computer stuff going, or we got two cousins that have the same hair color and can basically do the job. They'll be here Monday morning, so don't start with us. Yeah,
it was the guy that replaced Tom Wopat that gave me the creeps.
Well, they both are. Again, they look like, again, it's as if we're opening the next Food Lion in wherever, Georgia, and we're going to send these two guys with a General Lee car, and people are like, well, is that them? I don't think that's them. I'm not sure. but we don't get good reception on our black and white TV. That might be them. Yeah. And I remember looking one time or another, and I think they did do other things, but this stint on the Dukes of Hazzard was not the gateway to, fame, stardom, and success. So,
and I bet you these guys figured this was their break. This is what was going to make, and probably Vance is now working down at the
Cooter's Garage in Kentucky.
I think he's working down at the Winn-Dixie in Florida, bagging groceries probably by now.
Yeah, it's a tough one. Yeah, that is a tough one. A lot of shows went through a lot of changes, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, but it's pretty sad that they tried to pick lookalikes. Like, oh my God.
I mean, yeah, at least let's try to be like maybe one of them's a redhead or something, and maybe they're a little different, or do like the Maverick thing where they brought in Roger Moore to replace James Garner, and he was Maverick's British cousin. It's like, at least give the script writers something different to play with, rather than, no, just keep writing. In fact, we already got the scripts done. Cross Bo and Luke out and put Coy and Vance over their names. It's like, oh man, wow, that had to be a rough year to be working there. Yeah,
that would have been great if Bobby Ewing, when he awoke from his dream, that could have he could have sold that. If when he was telling, what was her name? Victoria Principal.
Pam.
Pam, yeah. If he was telling her, I had this dream about there was replacements for the Dukes.
For the Dukes. Man, that would have worked. They were both on Friday night on CBS. And it was about the same years that happened. So CBS in one shot could have cleaned up that whole mess. With Pam saying, I had this dream, and honey, that was all a dream. And remember that Dukes of Hazzard show we watched? That was all a dream. I mean, you could have cleaned house all at once. I don't know how close that is to over. I know Dallas, that's 85, 86, is Bobby is in the shower in May of 86, I think. Yeah. So I don't know. I forget what the replacement Duke season is, but they're within a couple years of each other. So it almost would have been. Yeah.
Yeah. And our very own Speed Muller tells us that every year on the anniversary of Who Shot JR, there's still crowds of people that gather outside of South Fork.
Isn't that amazing?
It
Man.
is. They actually have to close down one lane of traffic to accommodate all the people.
I've been there 2 or 3 times to South Fork. Yeah.
That's another place I got to go.
We got to put that on the list, and if we did that, we could go over and see Chris Atkins, Northern Pacific Railroad,
and have a lovely meal with Speed and Chris.
Oh, and Dallas is loads of fun. Yeah, that needs to be a road trip. Yeah.
Okay, and we have a website, amodeler'slife.com. If you go there, you're going to see our website, and we have all the latest podcasts listed there. It's not like I've done this. This is like the first time I've ever done this. And you go there, and also this will be on the free channel. So if you click on Patreon, you'll find out how you can get even more podcasts for the lowly price of 16 cents a day.
What a deal!
Unbelievable. And our very own Kaylee refers to that as the Antics channel. That's the Antics channel.
That's a good label for that.
Yeah, and I don't know how we. It's been so long since we've done the news. I forget how we exit. I think we just. I know we have its own theme music and everything.
Right, it's the early '70s NBC nightly news theme, but yeah, I don't know. I forget if we don't do subway chimes or anything, so I don't know. I guess that's, we can do Lester Holt's.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time and take care of yourselves and each other. There you go.
How about this? We're all in this together.
Yeah, exactly.
And now it's time for the New Jersey Transit Elevator Escalator Report. Take it away, Dave. Dave?
Good morning, everybody. Westfield westbound, just out of service in the last hour or so. The vendors en route Take a look at that one. Absecon's back in service this morning. Trenton Transit Center number 4 escalator. This one, we're not really sure exactly what happened. Nice Vision shows a bunch of people on it. It just sort of stops. The brake engaged. So I think we'll just be a quick reset, but we'll check it this morning. Union Center Island is still out for its midlife overhaul. Montclair State University number 2 is out. That one's the parking deck responsibility, so they'll put it back in service this afternoon, hopefully. And Newark Penn Station elevator number 37 is still out for its door replacement. We're not real thrilled with the vendor performance on that guy, but it'll come around here like everything else. So I'll keep you posted.
It's another Lincoln Homer.